By the late 1990s, violence was so rampant in this neighborhood that the Metropolitan Police Department called the East Capitol Dwellings one of the most violent public housing projects in D.C. D.C. police officer Byron Purnell, who patrolled the area for 4 years, reported back in 2003 to a Washington Post reporter that he and his partner would travel through the back alleys spying on clusters of young men that he suspected of selling heroin and crack. Officer Purnell said that he was well acquainted with the street choreography of the crowds of peddlers and junkies congregating at the intersection of Central and Southern Avenues, outside of 2 liquor stores and a market. In one 60-day period, Officer Purnell and his partner made 40 arrests around this intersection and confiscated 660 small bags of heroin and crack. He said, "The closing of East Capitol Dwellings is a first step towards altering the corners culture. I can't wait until it closes down." What happened to this notorious public housing project? And were there any changes to this neighborhood since 2003? Once DC's largest public housing complex, East Capitol Dwellings had nearly 400 families move out of the 40-acre city within a city that sits 7 miles from downtown DC and near the city's most eastern edge bordering Maryland's PG County. The Washington Post interviewed some of the last residents as they prepared to leave. Up the street on 57th Place Southeast, resident Sherika Brown said that she won't miss the men who sold heroin a few yards from her front door, nor the gunfire that routinely woke up her 9-year-old son, Rico, and left him shivering. She said, "It's time to go." Even as the final 15 families await relocation, demolition crews started their march across the large complex, leveling rows of barracks-style apartment buildings that for 48 years were home to generations of the poor and working class. The Reverend Bernard Taylor, pastor of Open Door Baptist Church, a block away from East Capitol Dwellings, said many families managed to carve out decent lives despite of the danger. But he said East Capitol will not be missed. "If they gave me some napalm, I would have bombed it," he said. "It has caused hurt to good people." David East, the manager of a neighborhood soup kitchen, is less enthusiastic. He said, "For the past 3 years, he has walked through the complex and hung out at the corners of Central and Southern Avenues, praying with the addicts and the alcoholics. The emptiness of the East Capitol Dwellings saddens him, as does the possibility that the neighborhood's transformation may clear out the people who rely on him. Mr. East worries where they would go. He said they have to know that there's somebody out there who will love them regardless." During the urban renewal of Southwest Washington in the 1950s, federal officials forced thousands of families to move to neighborhoods east of the Anacostia River, where they settled into new public housing. East Capitol Dwellings opened in 1955, and its 577 units stretched across the far end of East Capitol Street. The construction wasn't of the highest quality. Apartments flooded and the heat sometimes failed. But in the early years, tenants regarded the complex as a decent place to live, and the rigorous screening process ensured that the new tenants could maintain a stable household. In the 1960s, the federal government came to view public housing as a place for society's neediest, the unemployed and those on welfare. As screening of new tenants grew more lenient, East Capitol sank into hopelessness and violence. James Banks, DC's former public housing director, had said, "It was well intended, but the practical effect was to isolate the poorest of the poor." So instead of creating healthy communities, the DC government created ghettos. The 1970s saw a significant rise in the sale and use of illegal narcotics in the Capitol View neighborhood, as well as gun-related violence. As early as 1980, Hundreds of drug dealers selling heroin, marijuana, methamphetamines, and PCP line the streets of Capitol View. The region's hilly nature allowed them to see police approaching from a distance, giving them a chance to escape across the border into Maryland or into wooded areas. Gunfire in the area was common, with at least 3 incidents each week. The East Capitol Dwellings was in the heart of the action, downgrading the middle-class Capitol View neighborhood to a drug-infested war zone. In June 2009, the Capitol View neighborhood received nationwide attention after 55-year-old local woman Helen Foster L. was shot in the back and killed while attempting to rescue children at the East Capitol Dwellings, caught in the crossfire between 2 groups of men arguing over a car. Another 5 men were gunned down in broad daylight in the neighborhood a few weeks after her death. The District of Columbia later unsuccessfully sued gun manufacturers and distributors for millions of dollars in damages on behalf of Miss Foster L. and others in the city killed by handguns. There's now a new playground dedicated to Miss Foster L. in her honor. William Devon, who grew up at the East Capitol Dwellings during the 1960s, recalls a friendly neighborhood where kids slept outside on warm summer nights and adults sat up late and talked all night. But East Capitol's ambiance changed as drug dealers took over the street corners. The area's decline helped him write his hit song from 1974 called "Be Thankful for What You've Got," where he sang, "Though you may not drive a great big Cadillac, gangster white walls, TV antennas in the back, you may not have a car at all, but remember, brothers and sisters, you can still stand tall. Just be thankful for what you've got. Diamond in the back, sun rooftop, dig in the scene with the gangster lean, ooh, ooh, ooh." Devon said it was a great learning experience growing up on East Capitol, the same place where his brother sang with another East Capitol Dwellings alumni, R&B singer Marvin Gaye. Now, because of the Helen Foster L. case, the Metro Police Department changed its approach to violence in the neighborhood. Massive sweeps of drug dealers were made in order to break up the open-air daylight drug markets, and drug dealing in the area declined significantly. The Clay Terrace public housing projects, blocks away from East Capitol Street, also was one of the city's most violent, had become a particular focus for the police. A no questions asked illegal gun turn-in program was started, and it recovered a record number of weapons. Public housing residents with criminal records, especially for drugs and handguns, were tracked and evicted. An anonymous text messaging site was created to allow residents to report drug dealing, gunfire, and other crimes in their area. And an intensive effort from the city was made to fix street lights, clean and repair streets, upgrade and maintain playgrounds, and athletic facilities, especially basketball courts. Crime at Clay Terrace dropped by 50%. The police in the city replicated this program each summer after that. The district received a $30.8 million federal grant to demolish East Capitol Dwellings and the neighboring Capitol View Plaza, and to renovate another federally owned apartment building. That's more than 1,100 units in all. A new community to be called Capitol Gateway Estates is to be built in its place. A mix of rental and subsidized apartments and privately owned homes. District officials hope that all the new construction will attract a new supermarket and retail outlets to East Capitol Street. But then there's to consider the old East Capitol Dwellings residents swept into new neighborhoods around DC and Maryland, with no guarantee that they will be able to return. So some were given Section 8 vouchers, which could be used anywhere in the United States. City officials pledged to save space just for returning residents, so it will be possible for former East Capitol tenants to return to the new development, but the application process probably will make it difficult for many to qualify, admitted one official. So this new venture was planned to not only improve housing, but improve the reputation and safety of the Capitol View neighborhood. So now I'm going to walk you up the street from where the East Capitol dwellings were to where Capitol Plaza 1 and Capitol Plaza 2 were. The second major public housing complex was Capitol Plaza, which opened in 1971. This complex had 3-story townhouses and a 12-story high-rise apartment building located at 5901 East Capitol Street Southeast. A small 8-store strip mall called the Capitol View Mall opened in June 1976. A second major high-rise building, Capitol Plaza 2, opened shortly after that at 5929 East Capitol Street Southeast. And this 300-unit 12-story apartment building was only open to senior citizens, but this building suffered from a large-scale structural and design problems that caused the plumbing, HVAC, and electrical systems to always fail. Currently, the space is used as a garden for the residents because this area is a major food desert. So the East Capitol Urban Farm uses volunteers for planting and picking homegrown veggies for the residents. Now I want you to pay attention to the houses on the hill, right behind where the Capitol Plaza complex was. Those homes were built because DC realized that it had over-concentrated the poor in a small area, so the city supported the construction of affordable townhouses 1 block away. So in September 1990, the Capitol View Townhomes project opened next to the East Capitol dwellings on Southern Avenue. These townhouses were designed to accommodate mid-size and large families with 3, 4, and 5-bedroom homes. But the Capitol View townhouses failed to sell. In 1997, the DC Housing Authority, a nonprofit called Washington Inner City Self-Help, and a company known as Innovative Design Solutions joined together to transform those townhouses into public housing. The city spent $5 million changing them, and in 2001, the 3 organizations supported residents in forming a cooperative. The Southern Homes and Gardens Cooperative own and manage the 90 townhomes. Under the city's agreement, the units must be managed as low-income public housing for 40 years. Units are either owned or rented by low-income people, and residents may enter into a rent-to-own agreement. At the end of the 40-year period, the townhomes may be sold by their owners at a market rate. Now let's go back to East Capitol Street Northeast. East Capitol dwellings used to straddle both sides of East Capitol Street near Southern Avenue. But now I want to concentrate on the northeast side of East Capitol, where the grocery store was supposed to go. I'll show you the aerial view of the neighborhood, and I'll highlight in yellow where East Capitol dwellings were. Now this is called Capitol Gateway. From here you can see how Capitol Gateway fits inside the Capitol View neighborhood. Capitol View extends much further west than it shows in this map, but I want to concentrate on the east end. Now if we go across the street on the northeast side, you can see where the East Capitol dwellings would lie on the southeast and the northeast side of East Capitol Street. I'll highlight in green the empty lot where the Walmart had promised to build a store once the new Capitol Gateway project was started. The first phase of the project extended Capitol Gateway a little further by 2 blocks with more townhouses and a senior living apartment building. And the senior building has 151 unit low-income apartments. The same as with Southern Homes and Gardens. DC Housing Authority sold the townhomes to low-income residents who wanted to buy or enter into rent-to-own contracts and just rented the remaining houses to low-income families. Walmart agreed to build a store right next to Capitol Gateway, and construction was start on April 1st, 2015. However, closing 269 stores globally, Walmart announced it would not open its planned 2 stores east of the river, one at Skyline Town Center in Southeast and the other here at Capitol Gateway. At the time, many criticisms were thrown at Walmart by city officials because those stores were supposed to serve a majority African American population that's underserved by grocery stores and retail, and Walmart had already built 3 stores in other parts of DC years earlier. Many people believe that Walmart's decision to not build was due to DC's plan to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and establish a paid leave program. So Walmart issued a statement. As part of a broad strategic review of our existing portfolio and pipeline, we've concluded opening 2 additional stores in Washington, D.C. is not viable at this time. Our experience over the last 3 years operating our current stores in DC has given us a fuller view on building and operating stores in the district. This decision will not affect our 3 existing stores, and we look forward to continue serving these customers in the future. February 1st, 2022, the City Council approved Mayor Bowser's request to authorize the use of eminent domain in order to initiate action as the long-stalled Capitol Gateway Marketplace, located in Ward 7 at the intersection of East Capitol Street and 58th Street Northeast. The mayor responded. After 20 years, the residents of Ward 7 are on track to see an overdue promise fulfilled. A new supermarket and a fresh food access point at Capitol Gateway Marketplace. Today, with the council's action, we initiate a new start for this long-stalled project. With support from community partners, we will take the necessary next steps to deliver a full-service grocer and other retail amenities in Ward 7. The residents of Capitol View and the adjacent Deanwood neighborhoods have been long-suffering people. This area of Northeast and Southeast have been a forested area with streams running through it for decades. The unsettled farmland started to slowly disappear as the government came in and started building single-family homes in the 1930s. The Capitol View area has pretty much stayed at least 90% African American. But now the residents fear the change of gentrification because Capitol View sits between 2 metro stations, Capitol Heights and Benning Road. The newly installed DC Bike Share program has relieved some of the pressure of not having a car and relying so heavily on the metro trains and metro buses. The schools have been updated. Shad Elementary School is now a DC Scholars public charter school, and across the street, Evans Junior High School is now Maya Angelou High School, a public charter school. Some convenience stores opened and closed in the area over the past 70 years, but not a large major retailer. Now, with the promise of a large chain grocery store, some tenants have felt pushed out to make room for a different kind of people. The kind of people that would create a larger tax base for the city. Jaleel Green, the Prince George's County Director of Housing and Community Development, has said, "I don't fault DC for solving its problems, but PG County can use some of that federal grant money to solve our problem with DC residents migrating to Maryland." When East Capitol dwellings, Capitol Plaza 1 and 2, were knocked down, many people felt like that was the reason why the crime rate went down. But they also felt like they were being pushed out of their own neighborhood. Many older people have said that the area has definitely changed before and after East Capitol dwellings. Capitol View has a more peaceful tone to it now. I want to give a shout out to my subscribers for requesting this neighborhood history of East Capitol dwellings. And you know, it's funny how you can drive by an area all the time and not know the names of the neighborhood, the housing projects, or the schools. I definitely learned a lot on this one. And I definitely got a lot of exercise walking up and down those hills. I even forgot the street I was parked on for 30 minutes. Y'all know y'all gonna have old girl built like an athlete in a year's time, right? Y'all know that, right? Everybody continue to shout out your old neighborhood or just shout out and rep your current hood. It's all good. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm Dickie D in DC, and I will see you in the next video.